Well, Dan Perry is an Israeli affairs analyst and the former chair of the Foreign Press Association in Israel. He joins us now from Tel Aviv. Good to have you with us. So, first of all, Dan, is the Israeli government's announcement of these pauses in fighting, of changes in the aid inspection system, is this the result of the international pressure?
Yes, clearly. Israel's never had a coherent strategy as regards how much aid needs to go in. And of course, we're all aware of how certain extremist ministers have even made statements verging on war crimes, calling for no aid to go in. They play with this, and they turn it up and they turn it down. And I think there is a legitimate fear of aid being commandeered by Hamas, and also there is a sense that aid is not reaching the Israeli hostages. But all of it obviously pales before these images of stupendous suffering of innocent people. It's just heartbreaking that innocents are victimized by the intransigence and immorality of politicians on all sides.
We should, of course, keep in mind that figures such as Cindy McCain, who heads the World Food Programme, said on May the 25th, when asked has she seen any evidence of Hamas stealing aid, she said no, not at all. 3 days ago, UNRWA's official Juliet Toomer told this show she's seen no evidence of Hamas stealing aid, and it's been widely reported in the US media that a US aid report found no evidence of widespread Hamas looting or diversion of assistance. Looking at what is actually then happening, what has been recorded on the ground, aid agencies are saying despite the aid airdrops, despite these announcements of pauses in fighting, they are not delivering these changes, which Israel has at least announced, are not delivering enough relief. Has the Israeli government policy, as you read it, actually changed that strategy that you said looked very confused to you? Is there a change in the strategy of depriving aid and starving Palestinians?
They are trying to react to world pressure. There's also internal political pressures in Israel, as you surely know. The far-right ministers, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, have reacted with outrage to the decision over the weekend, when they were not consulted, to ramp up the aid. And as I say, there is great confusion in Israel about what to do about this. There is one school of thought that says that this is a cruel war, and that throughout history, parties to wars have not generally been overly concerned with sending humanitarian aid to the other side. There is very much another school of thought that says that this is a disgrace that taints the entire population of Israel and might embroil Israel in future legal and moral quandaries that most Israelis don't want to deal with. And because of that, that's what's driving the reality where 80% of the Israelis would like to end the war immediately on almost any terms. The government must contend with that, and therefore, because elections are to be held in about a year and a half at most, I suspect that Netanyahu will at some point turn on a dime and move to end the war, because that's what public opinion demands. But for the moment, that's not happening. And as I say, it's just heartbreaking to witness the consequences. I would only add also that it is dispiriting to see how little pressure there is from the Arab world on Hamas to surrender, because all of this could end in a second, including the humanitarian disaster. But of course, we've had this conversation for a year and a half, and it is what it is, and I think both sides will have a lot to answer for.
Would it really end, though? Not only given the fact that, of course, we know that Gaza has suffered decades of occupation and siege way before October the 7th attacks, which have been also condemned by UN human rights experts. But that was a situation of occupation that was ongoing. Even when there was a ceasefire deal, which Israel violated, we had statements during that ceasefire deal from people like the Israeli Minister of Communications, Shlomo Karchi, who said, February the 25th, 2025, he referenced a historic opportunity to deport Gazans, saying, we have said a year ago, you force until he says, I want to, apparently referring to Palestinians, occupy, deport, settle. Seems like elements, at the very least, important elements in the government, have a much bigger game plan beyond simply ending this war. They want to deport
Well,
Palestinians, right?
that is absolutely true. There is a radical school of thought in Israel that would like to see the Palestinians leave Gaza. And I mean, to my utter stupefaction, that includes apparently the president of the United States. I'm certainly not here, Sammy, to defend the statements of deplorables like Shlomo Karhi. But it's not the Israeli government policy. And, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree about whether what happened before October 6th constituted an occupation. Because Israel removed its troops and removed its settlers. There was a blockade of Gaza by Israel and Egypt, which was meant to create pressure on Hamas and to prevent goods getting in that could be used to build offensive weapons and dig tunnels and so forth. It's an ugly and terrible situation, all of which goes back to the fact that Hamas was hijacked by a jihadist mafia in 2007 that expelled the Palestinian Authority. And the only logical way out of this absolute disaster is for some version of the PA to be restored to Gaza. I would expect pressure on Israel to accept that, and I would expect pressure on Hamas to disarm and allow the war to end.
We're happy for you to give your perspective, of course, Dan Perry, but your disagreement is not with me, of course, when it comes to whether or not Gaza was occupied. As I'm sure you know, there are several statements ranging from the UN Secretary General to all kinds of international legal figures.
That's true.
Well, anyway, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much. Dan Perry, thank you for your perspective.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.